took my first drink at 12, and it lit me up in a way that nothing ever had. Smoking and getting into everything. You know, I tried everything I could ever find. Got off to college and just couldn't hold it together. Stopped going to classes, had a scholarship, drank away my scholarship. But I've been shot at. I've been held down and beaten in my car. Like, these horrific things. It's not a victim thing like, oh, poor me. It's like, how did I put myself in those situations? Again, Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky my whole life, I was getting pretty depressed because I thought if I just got all the stuff I wanted and was living in a cool house with a bunch of party friends, and I thought if I could just get that, I'd finally be happy. And of course, we get the thing and we're not happy. I remember hitting my knees and saying the simplest prayer that we can say, which is like, God, help. And that's why when we have those moments of clarity, those open doors for a moment, it's so important, I think, to try to strike and make a change, you know, just see what else is out there. Sure. It's less about what I want out of life and what I try to get, and more about the true miracle is seeing it happen for other people. The lesson that I've learned is if it's supposed to be, it will be.
Welcome to Rooted Recovery Stories. This is Patrick Custer, and I'm your host. So glad each and every one of you are here with us today. I am thrilled to be introducing my special guest, Replicant Security Officer 001.
Thank you for having me, Patrick.
So glad that you're here.
It's not about bad people trying to be good. It's about sick people trying to be well. Isn't that neat?
It sure is. So I didn't get a prep sheet today, and we just kind of flew into this. Didn't really get an introduction before now. I'm just wondering if in real time you could tell me and everybody else who you are.
Absolutely. I'm a Nafari Corp Replicant Security Officer from the upcoming film, Clone Cops. Isn't that neat?
I'd say so. So I feel like I might have a question that much of our audience is asking themselves. Your upper portion and your lower portion aren't quite matching. I'm assuming that there's a man behind a mask sitting before me.
Let's see.
Hey. Oh, what? Finally, the day has come. The one and only Phillip Cordell, actor, film producer, writer, the list goes on, but those are the ones I'm going to name.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me.
This is, well, first of all, you're welcome. And thank you for being here. I've been looking forward to this day for, as you know, quite some time now. Long overdue. But
thank you.
We had some, some obstacles to get past. Not obstacles, just priorities to get past before we could do this. Life
stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I'm so glad this is going to be, I feel like it's going to be the best roller coaster of a show. But so like before we get into stuff about us, because it's not,
sure.
we talked about this already. It's not just going to be about you today. Tell for our audience, tell us a little bit more about Clone Cops, the movie, and what is that on its forehead?
I would love to. So this is a look into our future with the surveillance built right into the helmet. We got the little mustache, the aviator shades. It's all baked right in. And this is Clone Cops is a movie that we made here in Nashville. And it's kind of a fun, wild 80s style sci-fi action comedy, like a throwback to the movies that we loved growing up as kids. And it's just a lot of fun and just really grateful to have had the opportunity to get to make a movie, because that's what I always wanted to do. That's what I went to school for. And then, once we get to college, and for people like us, I couldn't keep it on the rails,
right.
Yeah. And so any dreams that I would have had about making a movie were out the window, because I just couldn't make it through the day without taking a drink or something else,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, man, super grateful. Really, it's a testament to like the lives that we get when we can make better decisions, healthier decisions for ourselves. And yeah, it's a dream come true.
So without giving too much away about the movie,
sure,
is there any more tidbits that you can give from like the premise?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. It starts out as a gang of criminals. They're in their hideout and they understand that they're under siege by a nonstop replicating police force. the Clone Cops. They're made from a proprietary blend of the sauce. So it's kind of futuristic, fun, silly stuff. And as the movie unfolds, you discover there's quite a bit more twists and turns that the film takes. More than meets the eye.
Yeah. I love it. Well, I'm excited to finally get to see it. I know that y'all did a screening recently at the Nashville Film Festival, which is awesome.
We did. Super proud to bring it home to our hometown crowd, and it was the fastest sellout of any film in the film fest this year.
Wow,
yeah,
that's
so
awesome.
Super cool.
Yeah, congratulations. Well, whenever that time comes that that we do the red carpet here in Nashville,
you will be there.
I'm gonna be there. Yeah. But I'm really looking forward to it. So
well, thanks, man.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't sneak me like a secret copy to watch beforehand, because like I really do want to watch it, like, you know, in the full.
It's a different experience in a theater. It really is.
And with people. Yeah, yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
So.
And it's yes, the theater industry is struggling right now, but it is a whole different experience. And I didn't realize that until I saw it on the big screen for the first time. I was like, oh, wow. You know, I get to come in and have a lot of fun. I get to play a really silly, fun character, but there's some serious dramatic acting in there as well. And that just reads so much more powerfully on a big screen.
Yeah.
Shout out to theaters, you know, go see a movie in the theater.
I agree. I don't know how, as a filmmaker, you feel about this, but because I don't know how the math works out financially for people on your end.
Sure.
But I love that Regal and some of the other theaters have kind of, after movie, or what was it called? Movie Pass?
Yes.
Like died, you know, since then, to try and get people back in the theaters. They're doing their own type of deal. And my partner and I, we have the one to a specific theater, but I shall not name names. But we love it, and it's gotten us back going to see, you know, films, and it, you know, it. I don't know. There's something. There is something special about it, and I have to say that it feels. I am so much less resentful sitting through a movie when I know that it's part of my membership versus paying $20 a pop a ticket.
Sure.
Which, as I say that, I feel like that also is like, I don't mean that as a diss to at all to the art and.
I took it very personally. No, man, I get it. It's true. You're going to drop $60 if you get popcorn and drinks, you know? Yeah, it's crazy. Which I hope the industry figures something out. And there's some cool stuff happening, and everybody's super afraid of what's happening in the movie industry right now. I see a ton of opportunity. Like something's going to emerge here that's going to be different and cool. And I think I'm really looking forward to being a part of that.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that for you too. And
Thanks.
That for Clone Cops to be just the first of many.
Yeah.
So, well, so moving on along, you know, you mentioned about how in your early days, your dream kind of got stolen from you. Not permanently, thank God.
Absolutely.
But
yeah.
Because I know your story, I'm going to go ahead and take it further back, because it wasn't then that it started.
Yeah.
In all honesty, right? Like,
sure.
So
no, absolutely.
Starting from the point of just set the stage for your life, and then where your dabbling started.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am raised by two parents that love me to death, you know, and they're still together. Like, I can't blame my substance use on anything like that, you know? I understand that for a lot of people, there's some traumatic stuff in the background, which certainly can, if you're already predisposed to it, pushes you in that direction. But I was a center of the party kind of guy. I just want to be at the center of the party. You know, I liked having fun and yeah, man. And so I took my first drink at 12, and it lit me up in a way that nothing ever had. You know, and later came to find out that there was heavy alcoholism in my family. And so that's usually, you can trace it back one or two generations, and it's right there somewhere in the tree. So I just lucked out, I guess, you know?
Yeah.
And what are you going to do? That's just the way it goes. And that's all right. So again, I can't really blame my drinking on anything other than that's just kind of I was born that way. Your story is one that, and while yours is unique, you know, it's one of those things. Everybody's story is unique, and also there's a common thread. Absolutely.
You know, but specifically talking about that common thread from yours, I think is so important because it's a lot easier to look at the people who have PTSD or, identifiable big T trauma that occurred in their early stages of life.
Right.
I think that it is, all stories are equally as impactful. I think it's difficult for alcoholics like you to, this is my opinion, but there's an added difficulty to the admitting I'm powerless and the whole surrender piece, because I think there's a tendency for society to look at it and for the individual to look at it as this is a self-control issue. Nothing happened to me.
Sure. Right. It's a willpower thing. And I'd kept my grades up throughout school, and it was just something that we'll whip it into shape.
Right.
Not like, wow, I actually can't stop even when I want to, which is of course where it inevitably leads if you're like us.
Yeah.
And again, not, like I mentioned, not because we're bad people, just because we get sick and then we stay sick until we make significant changes.
Yeah. So, starting at 12. That's young.
Starting at 12.
How did it progress from there? I mean, I'm assuming that it wasn't, because I don't remember that far back in your story, but
sure.
You didn't just start draining the liquor cabinet right away, did you?
No, that looked like drinking every chance I got on the weekends at friend's house, anywhere there was maybe a liquor cabinet, and by 15 is when it got pretty significant, because I got a fake ID. There was my friend had found an ID for a gentleman that was 27 years old.
Wait.
Yeah.
You've the entire time, and we've known each other a minute now.
Yes.
But you've always looked young for your actual age.
Stop it. But thank you.
So I can't imagine at 16. How the hell
was a kid,
did you get anybody to buy that you were whoever that was in the picture?
Well, so I grew up in East Nashville, and on the east side in the 90s, it was a slightly different atmosphere. Yeah, they just didn't seem to care. They're like, okay, go ahead, son. And we'll see you next week. And so what that ID did, though, is it put me in the middle of the party. Anybody that wanted to party, typically in high school, I was involved, in a lot of that. And so, again, not from I'm trying to drink my troubles away, but let's light it up, let's have a big party. And that's what we did. And so that was from 15 through 18. And then, I got a scholarship for college because I was able to keep my grades up for part of the time. And then as soon as I was given that leash, came off, that leniency, and was on my own in college, I got to drink the way that I always wanted to, which looked for me like daily drinking. And, and I remember having friends that I thought
college, did the daily drinking immediately start?
It did. It's yes, really the summer before I went to college even. Throughout high school, it was primarily weekends. And then by senior year, it was weekends and, any school night I could. And of course, doing, smoking and getting into everything. I tried everything I could ever find. Mm-hmm. Again, just from this looks like another, favor for the party. Another party favor. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did the consequences start for you?
They started actually that summer before I went to college. That's when I had my first experience with some outpatient rehabilitation. And I wasn't ready to stop, of course, but I'd gotten fired for being caught on the job, getting messed up with friends. And and
so did you arrive intoxicated to work with your friends, or were you actively indulging?
Yeah, I was actively indulging at work and having friends come over. And I worked at a photo developing shop, which is a far away notion now. Right now, it's one small section of Walgreens only.
Right.
But it used to be on every city block. There was a place where you could take film and drop it off.
For those of you 29 years old and younger, photo development shop.
Yeah, right. You would take the film from the camera, present it to...
That was not in your phone.
Right. Dude, I mean, seriously, you talk about the way lives have changed over time. What a trippy thing that is not really a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I worked there, and I would have friends drop by. It was over by Opryland Hotel. They'd drop by and they'd party with us, and it was, if I was closing by myself, we'd sit around and do shots and go to the dark room and smoke and hang out, and it was a trip, man. And of course, at a certain point,
That sounds really fun, honestly.
it was. Yeah. That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
And I expected people when I got sober to say, "Oh, well, it was the devil." Like when it's working, it is fun,
Right?
Which is why it's so tough to see life without it, because we've got so many positive memories. And a lot of times we'll overlook the last X number of years of negative memories because we're latched on to those good old days. So yeah, man, that was a tough thing of letting go of that. And so that was 18 years old. And, I got sober a few years later, but not until it progressively got worse,
Right.
Yeah. So got off to college and just couldn't hold it together. Stopped going to classes, had a scholarship, drank away my scholarship. Yeah, man. And tons of crazy stories from that 1 year, that one period of my life up in
Let's
Chicago.
hear a couple.
I mean, just
Or one. What's the first one that comes to mind?
the first one that comes to mind is probably like drinking out on the beach and some other and just kind of partying with the people who were on the beach, because I would drink with anybody. I was
course.
drinking with people under the bridge. I was drinking with people like if you were drinking, I was with it. And I befriended these Hispanic dudes, and they're like, "Yeah, man, you want to, and so we're passing in and it's all good. And then these other guys come up that I don't know and they pick a fight with me. And I'm like, they're swinging at me, and I'm sure there's more to the story that I don't remember. But what I do clearly recall is I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? And then my new friends over here came with the beer bottle over the dude's head. Latin Kings, what's up? And I was like, oh, I'm with them, it's one of those things where like, I didn't realize I had that kind of backup, but now I guess we all know,
right?
And there will be no more shenanigans because now I'm with the Latin Kings. So yeah, dude, and stuff like that happened frequently. I'm not super aggressive, but once we start drinking,
right,
everything's out the window, and who knows? So, I mean, I've been, and I'm not bragging here, Patrick, but I've been shot at. I've been held down and beaten in my car, like these horrific things.
Wait.
Maybe there is some trauma, Patrick.
What?
Yeah. Because I've been living that life.
I did not know you've been shot at.
Yeah. I was helping friends with stuff back in the day,
Wait, were the air quotes for helping or the air quotes for friends?
Yeah, that's a great question. Probably both.
Okay.
Right? But by helping, I mean helping procure things that at the time were more, were illegal substances, right? And so I'm out helping people, and of course I'm bopping around like, and it's just a matter of time for somebody's like, that's an easy mark. I'm gonna just take whatever that guy's got, And so I got set up, and it's just, and again, I can't. It's not a victim thing, like, oh, poor me. It's like, how did I put myself in those situations? Looking back on it, it's like a whole different person and a whole different life.
Wow.
But I'm grateful for all those experiences because they shaped who I am, and they gave me some great, as a writer now, I can tap into some really interesting things from personal experience.
Right. I still can't believe I didn't know that you've been literally shot before.
Yeah. Thankfully they missed. I mean,
right. Yeah.
And there's always that question like, were you trying to hit me or were you just trying to scare me? And I don't, I wasn't looking, I was running at the time. Right. So it's tough to say. Oh man. I know, man. It's wild, right?
It is. Yeah. It really is. So, good grief. So, I think for everybody, it's a little bit different how the trajectory of, we talk about it's fun till it's not fun anymore. Yes. And usually it never reverts. And we're always seeking that we continue on because we have to continue on because we don't know any other way. We're avoiding pain at that point. But the trajectory of consequences increasing and approaching the point of like the fun times ending. Sometimes the consequences are there, but the fun is still right up there with it. Mm-hmm. So I know you said, year before you're starting going to college, mm-hmm. the consequences are beginning, but I'm interested in the story arc of can you describe for me how the fun started to wane, as you go downhill. Sure. And you're not drinking for fun every day anymore.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because morning Phillip looked a lot different than evening Phillip. You know what? Evening Phillip, once I was, good to go, well, I got to take tomorrow off, And then in the morning I'd wake up and be like, yeah, I know I was going to lay off today, but maybe. And then by that afternoon, our brains have tricked us into thinking that it's okay to pick it up again, and that's for me once, and it's very difficult to admit that like, oh, wow, I don't have any autonomy here anymore. This is just happening. I'm just drinking and getting messed up because that's all I know to do at this point. And that's that.
Did you
cycle.
admit that before you got sober? Because for me, it wasn't until a few weeks in that I was able to admit it was like, I didn't have that insight. Right.
Yes, I did, just because there was I'd had some circumstances arise, where I set up where I almost ruined my mom's birthday party. This giant trip we were taking, and of course the night before, just keep it cool, just be cool. A fight breaks out at a bar. I think I'm helping my buddy who's bartending, so I get involved, and then it's drinks are on the house for the rest of the night, and I end up surrounded by police, and my parents have to come get me the night before, So that was one of those moments where I was like, all right, gotta lock it down, gotta get serious. No more tequila, or whatever. Like, this is the problem. And of course, give it a week, and then 2 weeks, and then before you know it, the insidiousness for me was I got the sniffles. And what would really help that, after promising that I'd drink beer only from now on, is maybe some whiskey, and all of a sudden I'm back to the stuff that, and I mean, to be clear, you can be, a drunk on any of it. It doesn't matter what you drink, it's how you drink it. And I was not drinking effectively. I was drinking to black out and taking other stuff that would cause me to lose big moments, large blocks of time every night. And, again, do that like whole other life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you ever get to the point where you were drinking, like where it got to the point where you were drinking in the morning throughout the day?
Only on off days. So I had a gig as a valet, which was great. And that allowed me to sleep until 4 p.m., go to work, and then get off by 10:30 or 11 and live from 11 to 9 a.m., and drink and party that whole time. And so certainly days that I wasn't working, I'd wake up. It's like spring break in high school was such a great time because for that whole week you get to wake up and have, start having margaritas, and it's a blast. And then slowly you bring that into your daily living. And so I was able to keep some things on track, like that job, because it was a night job. I was still enrolled in college, and I'd start out with 15 hours and end up cutting any class that was during the day until I just had 2 or 3 night classes that started at 6 p.m., because that's the only thing I could make it to.
See, I would have, no, and I did do this, but like for me, I mean, the night would have been helpful / mandatory, but I still would have been like, I would have, because I was drinking around the clock. Like I'd have been, I don't know. I shouldn't say this. I never got in a vehicular altercation. And I've said this publicly before, so it's fine, I guess. But like I drove drunk heavily intoxicated every day for
we are so
better part
lucky,
of a year.
Yes, to not have caused the carnage that we know it's a numbers game. I remember somebody telling me that early, while I was still drinking, like, dude, I know you think you got it figured out because you think you can look in your rearview mirror and spot police cars, and be like, no, I can tell. I know when to be cool. Just be cool with the cops, But like, it's just a numbers game, man, and like it will catch up with us eventually.
Yeah. Oh, it absolutely will.
So I bought, I wanted to stop drinking. I couldn't. I had some experiences where I knew for sure, like, okay, I can't do this. And then, I'd like to say that I just had this epiphany that like, I've had enough. And at this point, again, Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky my whole life, I was getting pretty depressed because I thought if I just got all the stuff I wanted and I was living in a cool house with a bunch of party friends. And I thought if I could just get that, I'd finally be happy. And of course, we get the thing and we're not happy. And that's such a great lesson today, where like it can be shoes or a TV or all the things that we can obsess about, thinking we'll get them. And then as soon as we get it, oh, that's not it. That's not the fulfillment.
Yeah.
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 Right?
Sorry, I can really agree with that because I don't know. I feel like God is wanting me to learn that lesson over and over, and I don't know when I'm going to stop listening to learning that one.
We say that as people that I like nice stuff. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm super blessed to live in a gorgeous house on the river that we renovated. You live in a gorgeous, skyrise. Like I've been to your house. It's incredible, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I truly think that like my job is to take care of God's kids and God takes care of me, whatever that looks like and whatever comes with that, great. But that's not the focus, that's not the main thing. Mm-hmm. It's just like, such an incredible thing to get to be a part of. And sometimes, it's really rad, I got to make a movie after going to school for that, and thinking, oh, well, and then I got a regular job and thinking, oh, well, I'll never get to go back to that. And I did. Yeah.
Before we get, because I want to go to that, but I'm curious because we haven't talked about this piece yet. Mm-hmm. I think you and I, we've known each other, like I said, for many, many years, and met very early on in my sobriety journey. And I think that what drew me to you is that the similarities in our personality, which is the outgoing, extroverted, like lover of joy, and of people and connection. And that was also me in addiction as it is now. Like that person was the same until it wasn't. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, did isolation come out and play a role for you?
Absolutely. And which, you said it, as an extrovert, as a people person, I love people. I look for whatever God is, I look for that inside, people and connect with that. And that's, I think, why substance use is so damning is because towards the end there, we're isolated from everybody. We're completely shut off, and and it's that sense of hopelessness and loneliness that knows no limits,
Well, tell me a little bit more about what that, like, if you were to describe what, painting a picture of what that looked like as far as how did you isolate? Because I could tell you how, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's something that people don't, like the textbook definition of us talking about isolation is one thing, but when people hear specifically like the ways that we did things,
right?
I don't know. I think there's a lot of power in that. And for somebody that might not realize they're doing it right now.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. That looked like, glamorizing people that came home and had a drink on the rocks by themselves, and turns into drinking by myself, a whole bottle of bourbon or whatever, and thinking like I'm being, starting off like with the delusion that we're classy somehow, right? That like, oh, I'm living a swanky, upscale kind of vibe. And at that point I was 21 years old, 21, 22 years old. And so that drinking alone, unable to maintain any type of relationship, I was just a scummy dude that didn't care about other people's feelings, and it was easy to blow people off and treat people unkindly, in ways that I really regret. And so, I had, and then even my friends.
Did you have commitment issues?
Believe it or not, I did.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, of course. Which, since not drinking anymore, that so much of these things that I thought were just a part of me, it turns out they're not.
Yeah. It's funny. I think it's funny to me, and I mean funny, ironic, because general society, when they hear me say commitment issues, probably go immediately to the romantic side of things.
This podcast is brought to you by Promises Behavioral Health. If you or a loved one are struggling with trauma, addiction, or mental health, we are ready to answer your questions and help you take that next step. Call our admissions center at 888-648-4098 or visit us online at www.promises.com. Our team is ready and waiting to answer the call for help.
But you and I have talked a lot about the importance in our paths of how sobriety has translated to like showing up when and where we say we're going to do something, not flaking.
Which is crazy, right?
Avoiding procrastination, or at least trying to.
We're men of our word. We have integrity.
Yes.
Which again, dude, you know, when you're out living the life, we say all kinds of things we know are not true in the moment. Oh yeah, I'll meet you there in 15. You know, I'll see you, whatever. It's like, dude, I'm nowhere close to leaving this situation and coming. But it's like, I just don't want to deal with the truth of like the situation. You know, I don't want to deal with reality. It's easier to tell you something different, even if we both know I'm lying. You know.
Yes, I think the reason why my blank face there is because I think that where you and I might differ is like, I think that I was so far down a rabbit hole at the point we're talking about the parallels that like, I think I believed, like as it came out of my mouth, I believed it just as much as I wanted you to believe what I was saying.
Sure.
With the inability to back it up.
Right. Yeah, which is a scary place to be, of course, you know.
Because deep down inside, I still believed that I was a good person, that because the answer that I was giving you was the appropriate one. If I am a good person, then I'll show up when I said I was going to show up, or follow through on whatever I'm telling you I'm going to do right now.
Right.
And I couldn't reconcile a different version. Like if reality was different, I couldn't look at that and be like, oh, that fucked up, Patrick. You know what I mean?
I do know exactly what you mean, man.
So, but did you have
some version of that?
Or did you?
I mean, it's that is what, to me, what you're describing is some of the delusion that we live in, that, I think we all end up with some delusion. Mm-hmm. And again, I would like to say that I just decided to get sober, that, you know, I knew that it was the best thing for me, but just like everybody else, I had to have a certain set of specific circumstances bubble up.
Encouragements,
you know, and what that looked like to me was, you know, I'd been helping my friends for so long, but not being very good at it, that, you know, that
are we back to air quotes helping friends?
Back to helping my friends,
okay.
Right? Back to helping my friends
with outside issues.
With outside issues. That's it. You know, with all the things that could make their dreams come true. You know, and it was a different time for marijuana at that point. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, honestly, now it's a trip that you walk around, you smell it everywhere, you see it everywhere. But I mean, when we were younger, it wasn't like that. It was still very clandestine, and it was a big deal to get it. And if you had it, you were, you know, Mr. Cool. Mm-hmm. But again, my problem was that I had it and I couldn't keep it because people would take it from me, you know? and so the gentleman that I worked with at the time let me know in no uncertain terms that there were going to be serious consequences if anything like that happened again. You know, they were going to mess me up basically. Uh-huh. And so one morning I wake up and I, you know, go to get the stash and it's all gone, and the money's gone, everything. And I'm like, it's happened again. I've been robbed again.
How much would you say in dollar value?
Now
the money plus
maybe $5,000, which you know, which back then, I mean, we're talking. We're talking 2000s, so adjusted for inflation. Come on, man. That's.
I mean, right now, I think that's enough to make a.
Yeah, of course.
Somebody.
Of course, is that a kneecap? That might be what a kneecap goes for. I don't know. But and so I woke up and I couldn't find it, and I paced frantically around the room. And I remember hitting my knees and saying the simplest prayer, you know, and I grew up in church, but had stopped going for years, and I'm not, you know, super religious today, but I have a great relationship with whatever this God thing is. And I remember hitting my knees and saying the simplest prayer that we can say, was like, God, help. You know, if you're real, I need some help. You know, you can call it a foxhole prayer, call it whatever, but that was an opening a door, I believe, to some divine intervention. And then I did what every hardcore dealer does, which is I hopped on the phone and called my parents. It was like, hey, you know, this is going to come as a surprise, but I need help. And they were like, yeah, of course you do. We've been trying to tell you that for the last couple years. Clear to everybody else, you absolutely need help. It's great to hear you say it. let's move that along, you know?
Yeah.
And so in the process of going to treatment, we start packing up my stuff, and, you know, I'm packing up my t-shirts and my socks, and then bam, all the stuff I thought had been stolen, I had hidden from myself in a blackout. And so the gears start turning.
no.
I'm thinking, yeah, I'm like, how can I back out of this? Because clearly I overreacted, and
Yes,
treatment
most definitely.
sounds severe. And so, yeah, man, it was a trip. And thankfully I stuck with it, because there's also that deep part inside of us that knows that, like, a change would be great, you know?
Yeah.
And there's an opening right now to see what else is out there. And that's why when we have those moments of clarity, those open doors for a moment, it's so important, I think, to try to strike and make a change, you know, just see what else is out there.
Sure.
Again, my experiences is when I take a step, the universe takes 3 steps towards me to kind of pull me into this healthier way of living, you know, that I don't have access to otherwise, because I'm so, speaking of isolation, I mean, the isolation from our fellows in the physical world is real, but that, like, spiritual, mental isolation is such a scary place to be, that when you start seeing the synchronicities and the coincidences and all the little things popping up in life, and it's like, what's going on? You know, all of a sudden we open our eyes and we see these things. And I'm a big fan of the idea of, like, man, I'm not going to tell you got to get sober. Just try some things. And if weird stuff starts to happen to you, maybe be open to the idea that there's another way of living.
Yeah. Well, I really like how you just described it, because it can seem like such a mountain, or, you know, that metaphor of how do you eating an elephant, you know, to quit something that is so all encompassing, like an addiction, or to give it up. And because it's not just the substance, it's what all the things attached to it. It's what you think the ability to access joy, fun, relationships, success, like excitement, like,
yes,
you know, and
right, the whole spectrum of emotions that we're blocked off from.
Well, yeah, but we think
we're living it.
Yes. And so, you know, it's like, it feels like such a mountain to approach this even somebody that, like, you or I could go in front of a person who is brand new sober, or thinking about getting sober right now, and the idea to them of living a life like we are seems so foreign.
Sure.
Because connecting the dots between whatever their circumstances are to where we are today is just so far. But I love what you said as far as the taking one step, and the universe would take 3 towards you. And I think that's such a hopeful, and I believe a really true, realistic analogy of how things roll out when we put effort into this sobriety thing, the healing journey.
It's miraculous, right? I mean, it truly is what we see happen.
And I think that for me also, like, it rang so true in how whenever somebody articulates a concept I've lived, but I've never really known how to talk about it before, and it's such a simple piece like you just did, I think it's worth talking about for a second, because it's so true, and it's something that there's so much fear behind for so many people, and I know it was for me as well, that every step along the way that you do have to put one foot whatever you're talking about, whether it's going to treatment, whether it's staying 2 extra weeks because they said you needed to, or
extra credit,
or they mentioned the halfway house term to you, which they might as well have, like, told me,
shut the doors of the prison for life.
Yeah, like, you think I'm that type of person that I need a halfway house? First of all, that's so rude. Oh,
rude.
But my point is that every step of the way that I did put one foot in faith, just because I knew, like, the whole, like, I don't know what's best. but this is what's being suggested of me. So this one foot's going to go in front of the other. I feel like God and the universe and people, the community around me showed up and did the 3 steps.
Yes.
And I think that that's not unique to you and me.
Agreed.
I don't.
Which is why, to me, it seems very mystical, right? This spiritual path we get to walk seems crazy to some people, right? And to me, it's incredibly practical. When I do these simple things on a daily basis, my life is better.
Yeah.
Period. It just where it's as scientific as it could be. My hypothesis is if I do these things consistently over time, I will get this outcome. And sure enough, I get some outcome that consistently blows my mind.
Right.
Which is incredible. Right.
I like being surprised.
Yes.
I really do. I always have ever since I was a kid. So I'm great with that. We talk about this all the time. Like, we've continued on our own healing paths of just like digging in deeper the longer we've, stayed sober, finding new stuff to work on. And I think that theme still stays true.
Yes.
Like, every single bit of effort I put out there is met with 3 times, is met with more. It's met with more.
Absolutely.
And exceeds what mine,
And that universal law expressed in every religion of reaping what you sow.
Yeah.
When I put some effort in, I'm reaping what I sow directly.
Yeah.
There's a reason that pops up throughout humanity, in every culture, because there's something to it, and it's such a cool thing to get to see and experience.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I would be a terrible host if I didn't ask this follow-up question on the subject of reaping what you sow.
Yeah.
We can't move forward without bringing it full circle to answer something I'm sure half of our audience at least has asked themselves is, when you're doing a legal business and you describe a scenario like what you just did, somebody else's money is tampered with.
Yeah.
You don't reap what you sow.
Yeah,
or you're at
absolutely.
risk of it. So what ended up happening with
So I found all the stuff.
Right, you
I
found it, but
all.
what did you do with it?
I was able to make right what I owed.
Okay.
And so I went out, with a bang, because I had, joyously, and my last night drinking was, arms around my friends, like, oh, I'm gonna miss you guys. It's kind of feeling maybe a little bit cheated.
Yeah.
Right. But I'll never forget this. Literally, some people that I never saw again in my life. That I love you guys for life. We're bros. And it's never saw them again, because the reality is, once you start making decisions that are good for you, decisions in our best interest, a lot of the people that are still making old decisions don't want to be around that, because it makes them feel some type of way. Understandably, it made me feel some type of way, right? I didn't want to be around people.
Yeah.
If you didn't drink or smoke, back in the day, I didn't want anything to do with you, and how limiting is that?
So I'm laughing because as you said that, I immediately started to think of some of our mutual friends and some of that are some of my good friends. But at the time, so they got sober before me. And I remember, God, I was such a little piss. I remember, Lindsay, I feel like
I'm sure.
I feel like I could say her last name. But, okay, so we went to Belmont together, and we were both political science majors. Political science majors like to drink. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah.
And
Something about poli-sci.
and drinking we did. And I think for the longest time she drank a lot more than me, but then we started to and she started to flirt with, life might be better if I, didn't, I remember being I was getting so upset.
Right.
Why would you think that? Our life is so good and we have so much fun. What you're just screwing everything up.
The commitment we have to the disease is miraculous.
It really
right?
is.
Yeah.
And so I had that, and then somebody else that Lizzie, she had at the time, but she had. I didn't know her before she got sober. We met at Belmont, and she was already sober, and I just remember being like, ew. And she was,
But over time,
so kindly saving a seat for me, you know.
And over time, you would become great friends,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And that's, to me, one of the great joys of living this way of life is seeing people, seeing that change occur.
Yeah. And I bring that up to not to like glorify being an a-hole to people like
To future friends.
Yeah. But to, I guess, expound on what you were saying, and that I think it's pretty normal for us we don't want to feel alone. And even in our addiction, even when we're isolating, we don't, like, even if I'm spending less time with you, but you're my drinking person, I would still rather you continue to drink and know that you're drinking than getting sober, because then I'm left with my own stuff.
Yep.
And that's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough. So did you stay sober after you got sober that time? Since then?
So I went to treatment. I went to treatment in October of 2004. 20 years ago right now. I was sitting in a treatment facility. Yeah. And I came out and I, heard what people said. Don't go back to, your spots. But I was really good at pool and darts and all the games that I, spent a lot of time playing while drinking, right? Just give me something to do while I'm drinking so that I feel like I'm being productive. And so I went right back out to it. I never had another drink, but some friends were doing nitrous oxide whippets, in a parking lot. And I did quantity 1. I don't know if you're familiar, but they last 30 to 60 seconds, hit you with that.
Is it the same thing as a duster?
Slightly different, but I think similar effects, and that it affects the flow of oxygen to your brain.
Yeah.
So super healthy there.
I did my fair share of duster.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah, it freaks me out thinking about how much of it I did in college.
Dude, I know. Same. Scary.
I would tell myself, I'd be like, they sell this at Office Depot. Like, how harmful can it actually be?
That's so funny.
I mean,
So that was, so I did one of those, and again, 30 to 60 seconds, and I immediately thought, was that, my spidey sense was going off. I wasn't sure. I was like, well, that wasn't a relapse, right? I mean, a relapse is a hellish tailspin, through the depths of hell where, and that it wasn't that. So I just kind of sat on it, and then finally got honest with some people close to me about it. And that's, that's how my sobriety date ended up bumped, by about 90 days. So now I'm 19 years sober, coming up on 20. Yeah.
still really long.
It's
So what does that make you, 50?
Stop it. 42. 50 something, my word.
Hey, I said you look a lot younger.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I look great for 60, right?
Yeah.
Everybody says so.
Yeah.
And again, dude, some of the great joys of my life and, sticking around this long, living this way of life, is seeing other people come in, which brings me to one of my favorite stories. About 13 short years ago, a young man with a little bit of an attitude came walking into places where we congregate. And man, and I have had the joy and the privilege of getting to kind of walk shoulder to shoulder with you through this way of life for the past 13 years. And such a, again, that it's less about what I want out of life and what I try to get, and more about the true miracle is seeing it happen for other people. And the change in me that took place is that I can actually be happy for other people, right? The old us, if you're winning, that means that I'm losing,
right.
That I can't actually be happy for people because it's less that I'm going to get out of life. And in my experience, the pie, God's pie is big enough for everybody, and so the real joy actually comes in seeing people that and get to spend time with, to see their lives change. And so just, I've been with you every footstep of the way, and to see
there have been a lot of footsteps, hurdles.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people that tune in here regularly know a lot of your background, but I mean, it's it's been such a wild ride and so inspiring for me to get to know and watch you live your best life, and doing some of the work around some of that. I have to ask, was I the first straight guy that you came out to?
Oh, that's a great question. But I think yes.
I think so too.
Because
I think you were just coming to terms with it, right? And you were like, I think to you, you're like, I'm going to hit him with a real curveball. And I was like, Oh yeah, clearly, and that's totally cool. I love you. Yeah, I love you no matter what.
Yeah, no, I was under the talk about delusion.
Yes.
I think I was under the extreme impression that this was going to be breaking news to everyone in my life. I think much like your story when you came to the realization and told your parents, I think I might need help.
Yeah.
When I came out, like everybody in my life had the same response.
Right.
It was just like, yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Like.
Right. Good.
You're finally.
Yeah, you're living your truth,
finally
man.
loving yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, what a gift of sobriety that is, to be able to just be who we're meant to be.
Yeah. Yes. And, I don't know that I've talked about this in any of my like public stuff before, but some of my trauma in the past, which I would say is little t because it wasn't, I could probably think back to certain things that somebody said that was very hurtful, but like it wasn't like a giant case of physical abuse or something like that. Little t meaning like I was exposed to straight men that made comments around me that were damning to effeminate males, just being feminine, period, homosexuality, being gay, making it a joke, just all kinds of stuff, whether it was to me or around me. And it really affected my ability to trust and connect with straight men. I wouldn't say at all. Yeah, I mean, really, like there was for my ability to connect with straight men was like it was surface deep because it wasn't safe,
right,
for me. And so, getting to that place where I was able to get honest with you was huge because when we go through the steps that. Early on, we're instructed to get thoroughly and completely honest, and I wasn't able to do that one thing because I didn't feel like I had safety yet until, I was a year sober, I think. I don't know.
Somewhere in that
somewhere
first
like
year,
that.
yeah.
And, I always say it's a miracle that God kept me safe. Meaning like, I didn't have to relapse over not getting thoroughly and absolutely honest until then, and so I've always been grateful for the fact that you have been there for me since then. But that if you don't know it, I will tell you, if you're a straight guy hearing this or watching this right now, you may not have any idea about just being a loving and supporting person who loves and accepts a LGBTQ plus person of any flavor in your life. The way you showed up for me in that regard made it possible for me to move on and then start to have and try and more have healthy relationships with straight men and build trust really for the first time.
Yeah, that's incredible. And that's something we get to just be a part of just by, we come in thinking if I can just quit drinking for a day or two, I'll get my normal life back. And really we get access to all of these new experiences and we get to show up for people. And that's really what life's about, right? It's not about me getting my pile of stuff.
Right.
It's about having these experiences and sharing them with other people,
I want to know because I know you talk about so much in speaking at different, things. You've got lots of great quotes and great insight about with recovery but I'm curious if you had to or ride an elevator from the top to the bottom of a skyscraper, and you got to think of like the top 3 to 5 things that changed your life, your behavior, how you changed after getting sober that really made your life transform, what would those things be?
Whew, that's tough, because every day I'm reminded of some giant spiritual truth, which really shakes me. But I mean, one of the big ones for me right now, I mean, you had mentioned earlier, like wanting to be surprised, and enjoying being surprised. And I think so much of the struggle that we have as humans is like our need to know. All my stress is about me needing to know I'm going to be okay next month or next year. Usually everything's fine right here in the here and now, but I'm stressed out about what might happen, and trying to flip that on its head and be grateful for the surprises, because that's where life really happens, is in the unknown. And then when you get that answer and it's like, oh, wow, that's either what I thought it would be, or it's something completely different. And in any case, I'm usually okay. I'm pretty much always okay.
Yeah.
And even when I think I'm not okay, it's always weave into something, and I am a big fan of that idea of like, there's no mistake that I can make that God can't turn into something beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't know personally if there's a Sky Daddy marionette in life for everybody. I don't happen to believe that necessarily. No offense to anybody who does, but I think that we're trying to find our flow in this great universal fabric, and sometimes we're right in flow with it, and it's like you feel it, like I would say this conversation today, I certainly feel like that. And then other times I know I'm doing something that maybe I shouldn't do, and I'm doing it anyway. And again, I'll reap what I sow. There will be consequences. But on down the line, if I get back into the flow, I'll see how those things can still be put to good use.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll have that experience to share with other people about like, well, I tried that. Can't suggest it, wouldn't suggest that. So that's been really present for me lately. And then this idea of like letting go of what I think should be, and just kind of, I guess it's kind of the same idea, going with the flow. And that's what led me, I graduated college, didn't want to finish college, got sober, and my mom was like, please just, and I was like, well, I'm 7 years in, I'm going to be old when I graduate, I'm going to be the old guy, I'd be 23, which now at 42 is so ridiculous, but at that time seemed crazy. I'm sorry, 25. Yeah, I would have been 25 when I graduated. It took me 7 years to get my 4-year degree. A lot of times people go 7 years, I call those people doctors.
I know,
but
right?
For me, I was a communications major, went to school for TV and film production, and then got out of college and met a fantastic young woman who's now my wife, who well. Mm-hmm. You're such a part of our family. My kids love you. Yeah,
they've been staring at me in the face this entire podcast. Can we get a close up of these socks right here?
But you gotta let them know, number one dad. Shout out to all the other dads out there. But the lesson that I've learned is, if it's supposed to be, it will be.
Yeah.
I went to school for TV and film production, graduated in 2007, got a big boy job, in a business and an industry, and worked that job for 12, 13 years. Started out at the bottom, worked my way up, and had an opportunity to exit that business and get back to the dream, and just kind of putting it all out there and saying, I turn it all over, and whatever's supposed to be will be. And I think if it's inside of us to do the thing, whatever that thing is, we'll find a way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so there's one more I want to ask you under that umbrella.
Yeah.
What if you were to look back and think about the one that was like the most glaring, I don't even know that I want to say character defect, but not character defect, but lesson or skill or behavioral change that you had to approach and make in early recovery.
Yeah.
That was necessary and you didn't want to, like, what did
it's the selfishness.
Yeah.
It's the constantly thinking about me and how I'm going to take care of, get my stuff, and, how I'm going to make the money I need to make, and
what'd you do to combat it?
You got to get out there and find ways to be of service to others, and that's
how did you do that?
That's not always easy, but in some of the recovery programs, some aspect of that is baked in, which is pretty cool, and then there's other ways through volunteering, hands-on Nashville we've done, some Second Harvest stuff, just finding ways to get out and give back. And that just completely shifts my perspective on life when I do that. And then it's that what I'm reminded time and time again is what I said earlier, which is, my job's to take care of God's kids and God takes care of me. And the more I do that, the less jarring it is every time I give up something that I'm positive I'm supposed to have, whether that's a little piece of time or whatever. And I'm just like, okay, I'll do this because this seems like the right thing to do right now. And then you do it, and then some other miraculous thing happens, and you do that consistently over time, and all of a sudden it's not this crazy thing that happened once. It's like, that's my life, And
I think that it brings it full circle to the thing that we were talking about at the beginning of just like, it becomes this, it's easier to have the faith and put one foot out knowing that you're going to be met with either affirmation or the knowledge of what's next, or, sometimes it's like, brownie points for doing the right thing,
right,
like whatever it is, it's always met with goodness.
It is. So. I believe that life is unfolding into goodness. Yeah. And, man. And sometimes it's terrifying, or I want to see the rest of the path, the 1,000-foot path today. And instead I'm being shown, by candle, what today brings, what tomorrow brings, one step at a time, and again, that gives time for life to unfold in these miraculous ways. And
that desire, and I think that goes kind of like bringing this to a close, I think this is so perfect, because that desire is something that, as you just said, that doesn't leave us the desire to see everything. That desire to, sometimes we get pulled back into the past, or a lot of the time we're like, okay, yeah, but I need to, we get insecure about the future, and it completely robs us of the now. And it's all rooted in fear, which is stealing us from, it yanks us right out of where we're supposed to be enjoying life. Because like all that we have is now.
Is the now.
I mean, like,
is the now, man. And the more time I can spend here in this sacred now, the happier I am, the better off I am.
Yeah. Is there anything you do specifically that helps you ground yourself back to this moment when you start tripping out?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've in the past handful of years committed to meditation in new ways that I had not previously, and many, in the almost 19 years I've been sober, almost 20 years. It had been kind of on and off, and now I've got a pretty specific, I like to sit, there's all kinds of great literature out there. That's what I love about this way of life too, is that like it's always evolving. I think if it was just, okay, do this for the rest of your life, which a lot of people think it is, I'm going to get bored and burn out. But really it's, here's access to all the things in the world. Choose your adventure, And man. And so a refocus on meditation and kind of commitment to growing in that realm, whatever that looks like, has been really, really impactful for me.
For the person that is watching, resonating with any part of your story, what is it? What would you like to close out with in telling them?
Yeah, that if any of this seems positive, like you can have this life. We all have access to this life, and that some of the details might look different, just like the details of our using look different. But the overwhelming sense of peace and the knowledge that life is unfolding into goodness can be had by all. All we have to do is come in and bring some willingness to try something new. And it's miraculous how quickly it can change and how much different our lives can seem, especially when we're stuck in a hole and you can't see any way out.
Yeah, absolutely. With that, I'm going to thank you again.
Of course. It's my pleasure. And thank you for having me. And of course, I love you.
I love you too. This has been so special, and like I said, a long time coming. And I'm so glad that, there's so many people now. We talk about community and loving people. Like I get to be connected to so many people on this platform, and as much as I would love to have for it to be a two-way street, I don't know many, like so many of the people that are connected and consume this show. That doesn't mean that I care any less about any of you, but it is very special to me that y'all are getting to know Phillip, because he's one of those core people that has made the difference in my life as an adult and becoming a hopefully well-adjusted human being that's doing his best to make a difference in the world and stay sober. So
beautiful.
Thank you. So I really want people to connect with all the fun stuff that you're doing.
Yeah.
Because it's fun and exciting. And so how can they do that?
Thanks. Yeah, you can find everything about the project at Clone Cops, whether that's on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We're out there, we're pushing it and, chasing the dream.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll have all of Phil's links in the show notes as well. But if you're listening and, just make a mental note, and you can always come back to it. But give a like, share, follow. That's right. All the things.
Thanks. And the film will be out in January, we believe, on platforms everywhere. Yeah. So everybody can check it out and see what some scrappy young filmmakers out of Nashville are putting together on a very limited budget.
Love it. I love it. With that, I will remind all of you, or tell you for the first time, that it's never too late to start loving yourself. And you're always only one decision away from a completely different life.
This podcast is brought to you by Promises Behavioral Health. If you or a loved one are struggling with trauma, addiction, or mental health, we are ready to answer your questions and help you take that next step. Call our admissions center at 888-648-4098 or visit us online at www.promises.com. Our team is ready and waiting to answer the call for help.